President Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney are expected to hold talks in the coming days focused on tariffs. That's according to a Canadian trade official, and it follows the president hitting Canadian goods with a 35% tariff. Joining us right now is Colin Robertson, a fellow at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute. He's also a former Canadian diplomat. And Colin, how do you think we got to this position?
Well, we got to this position because Donald Trump wants to impose major tariffs on Canada in violation of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement, or what you call the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, which Donald Trump once proclaimed as the best deal ever negotiated because he was a negotiator.
We are now looking at tariffs around the world. It's not just Canada that's being targeted with this, but the president clearly thinks that Americans are getting a raw deal on the trade agreements that have been laid out over decades on this. I think he would like to renegotiate some of the trade deals that are already existing. Where do you think things stand? Is there an imbalance between what the United States gets and what the Canadians get?
Canada has a slight advantage, largely because of our energy exports, which the United States then turns around and sells abroad. Without Canadian energy exports, the United States would not be energy independent. So this is part of the disappointment on the Canadian side. Our trade is virtually in balance. On the services side, you have a significant advantage, and the trade has been it worked extremely well since our very first. It's been 60 years, as our Prime Minister says, his lifetime. Since the first trade agreement we signed, the Auto Pact back in 1965, again, that works extremely well, integrating the automobile industry between Canada and the United States. And then in 1988, we signed the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement, then came the NAFTA, and then we renegotiated, when Mr. Trump was last president, what he calls the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement.
I don't know, Colin, Canada's kind of in a tough spot, I think. You've seen the numbers of the past 10 years and per capita economic growth. I mean, it's staggering when I saw it. You're dead last in these countries. It starts with the U.S. It's up, I think, 20.1% GDP growth per capita over the past 10 years. Then Denmark, Spain, Netherlands, Italy, Sweden, Japan, France, Australia, U.K., Norway, Finland, Germany. Rounding out of Canada, up 0.5%. Your citizens have lagged almost the rest of the developed world in prosperity and per capita growth. Why is that?
Partly lack of attention by the national government to the economy and lack of investment. That's one thing that the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who was head of our central bank and then later head of the British Central Bank, has decided that we're going to put major effort to build across Canada and then diversify our trade, and also to reduce interprovincial trade barriers, what we call the unfinished business of confederation, dating back to 1867. That's actually begun. Our governors' equivalents, what we call premiers, have all agreed that we now need to do more to put emphasis on the economy to address exactly what you described, that lack of economic growth over the past decade, where we did fall way behind. We had been keeping pace with the United States roughly until then, but we slipped significantly, and that's on us.
The trade minister from Canada was on the airwaves this weekend saying that he thinks there's a lot of common ground between the two countries and that a deal will be reached. Do you know where you expect to see the contours of that deal, how you expect to see that play out?
Well, I think what they're working from is the agreement that President Trump negotiated 4 years ago and making incremental changes. There were to be a review of the agreement was to take place next year. In fact, preparations were already underway when President Trump came to office. So I think that what we should wind up with is likely to be something like what we've already got, with some adjustments. The Americans would like us to remove the digital services tax. The Prime Minister's agreed to do that. Supply management, something that we both practice. There may be some adjustments there. Perhaps we pick up to increase slightly the quota that the United States isn't using on dairy products, as an example. But there are things we want, and the most important, of course, is to maintain the auto trade between Canada and the United States, which has worked extremely well for all three countries, and which the major auto companies all would like to see preserved, because we've created this deeply integrated industry which serves North America. Consistent studies have shown that the Canada, Mexico, U.S., it's just the economic platform with energy, market, innovation really is a solid foundation to trade with the rest of the world.